Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Winning Minds show, powered by Women Inspiring Network. We are a platform for storytelling and for informing
glasses on.
women about ideas from different walks of life. And Winning Minds specifically is looking at women content creators and women authors, writers, bloggers, vloggers, podcasters, what have you. And the whole idea is to document brilliant women who are creating their stories, writing in different formats, different genres, writing with purpose, writing with passion, and who are influencers in their own rights. Our aim through this platform, through Women Inspiring Network in general, is to reach out to women from all walks of life, across age groups, from different cities, so that we can create a platform for networking, for inspiration, and for sharing stories. And the same holds true with Winning Minds, where we bring to you authors, their journeys, and we hope that as you look at your own creative journeys, it inspires you. So today we have a very special author with us who will be joining us in another minute.
Special guest.
And she is Ira Trivedi. Ira is a best-selling author of let me just add. So,
hi, how are you?
I'm doing really well, Ira. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Fantastic. So, Ira, I was just going to introduce you, and it's fantastic that you're here. For our listeners and viewers today, Ira is the author of 8 books. She's written across genres, so she started out writing fiction. From there, she moved into non-fiction and children's books and yoga books. And she is a multifaceted person. She was, she's won multiple media awards for her work. She publishes not just as an author and writes books, but she writes for foreign affairs, foreign policy. In 2017, she was one of BBC's 100 most influential women around the world. And she is also an entrepreneur and a yoga acharya. So today we will hear her stories. So welcome, Ira.
Thank you.
Welcome again. So, Ira, you've had a fantastic, journey of creative writing, and you moved from, studying business into your writing journey. So, tell us a little bit about your early influences. When did you know that you wanted to write? How was the journey? Why did you write your first book? Give us a little intro into that.
I think my case was always one in which I never really, with both writing and yoga, with neither of them I thought this was going to be my full-time career. With writing, I always, I wrote my first book when I was in college. When I went to the US, that's when I really discovered that I had an ability to write. Before then, the Indian schooling system, there wasn't much time. As you know, you're constantly studying English. English is about rote learning. You have to answer the question just correctly. So there was not much time to suggest and to really do any sort of creative writing. So I really encourage parents, to the same way that we put kids in classes and the same way that we put them in other things, to really encourage your kids and put them in creative writing courses, from young ages. This is not available in Indian school systems, but now with online education, you have access to so many amazing platforms where you can really try and get kids at younger ages inspired and motivated to write. So that's when I really first discovered that I had an ability to write. I could sit down, I could put pen to paper, and I could produce something more quickly than anyone else could. I remember in college, people would really struggle to write one paper. For me, it's so easy. I would just, no matter what the subject, I was able to write. And it's not that easy for people to sit down and write. It's just that in itself. If you're able to do that, then means that you have a latent talent somewhere. That's when when I wrote my first book, even after my first book, even after my second, I think even after my third, I wasn't yet sure that this was going to be my career. I thought this is going to be something I'm going to do, I'm going to like. I never paid much attention to the marketing career, to the marketing of the books, even though I had a background. I mean, I was studying business at the time. Mm-hmm. But I never looked at it as let these books really do well. I realized that was a big mistake because even then, this was quite a long time ago, 10, 12 years ago, Facebook was around, Twitter was around, some of these basic platforms were allowed, but they were quite powerful. So especially now, I tell writers, especially young writers, you must begin to understand the basics of marketing. You must begin to understand it. And it's not publisher's job to market the book, it's your job to market the book. Even until today, publishers do that. So that's also for any aspiring writers, no matter how much of a beginner writer you are, how much of an amateur you are, start taking those steps. Create a blog, send out emailers, get on social media. There's a billion plus, there's billions of people out there. You can capture a couple of thousand.
I think it's as much marketing today as it is writing the book. And did you at any point of time think of the opportunity cost, because you had your MBA and you had a business degree, you could have gone into that career instead of choosing the path that you chose?
Yeah, what happened was that I actually, before I quit, before I left my sort of corporate career, I had a very brief corporate career on Wall Street. I made sure I had an X amount of bank account. I had an X amount in my bank account, knowing that would keep me. I was moving back to India, and I knew that I didn't find my parents. I said, as a young woman, it was very important for me to be financially independent. So I made sure that I had X amount of money in my bank account. And I knew that number may not go up in the next couple of years, it may go down. But I had safety net. That little pot of money that I'd created for myself was going to help me, in the years to come. And it really did help me. It helped me travel, it helped me study yoga, it helped me do yoga without the pressure of having to do a job. If I had to if I had to have a 9-to-5 job, I would have never had the chance to immerse into my writing career or immerse into my yoga the way I had. Because I had financially secured myself, before I came back to India and started living with my parents, I went a long way. I could still continue to travel and to live my life independently. So all young women out there, it's very, very important to be financially independent. It gives you
absolutely.
It makes you so empowered. It makes you really, even if you're living with your parents. In India, we often have to, for safety reasons, merely because in several cities it's safer to live with family than to live yourself or live in a flat with super young girls. So even if you're living with your parents, there's nothing wrong with that.
Your voice, Ira, is fluctuating a little bit. Can you increase the volume a little bit?
Is it better now?
Yes, much better. Much better. Yeah.
So I tell young women, really, really important to make sure that you're financially independent, that you're not dependent on your parents, on your husbands, just so that you have that ability to go and do the things that you want to do, and no one can stop you. No one can stop you. So I thought it was really important to do that, and I did do that.
No, that's really fantastic, and I can see a lot of comments coming in talking about how you're such an inspiration to young women. I can see it in the scroll. So let's talk about the genres that you've experimented with, right? And you moved initially with from fiction into a very what I would call fairly serious non-fiction in a well-documented format with a lot of research, right? So how was the process of fiction, and how different was the process of non-fiction, especially in a non-fiction that was done to a degree of depth and structuring with a lot of research and so on?
So I would say that fiction, fiction is quite a technical process. It's not like just sit down, the words come. It doesn't work like that. The way that it's the way I approach everything else. I try to do it in a very organized way. Before I begin a book, I set sort of map. This is where the book is. So this is what my daily progress has to be. For writers especially, I put those goals, and that's really helped me, both my yoga and my writing. You can track. Like even in yoga, you have to practice every day. Even as a teacher, in fact, as a teacher, it becomes more difficult to practice, right? Because you're constantly teaching. Sometimes you don't have time, to do your own practice. No matter how senior you are as a teacher, you have to keep up your practice. And you have to keep goals. That I want to practice every single day for the next 30 days, even a simple goal like that.
Sure.
Work, just like that with writing as well. There are goals. When you start writing work fiction or non, you have to set a target. This is what I'm going to try to do. And you have to try to stick to that target, no matter what, because you're going to try, a lot of things are going to come up to not let you stick up to that target. The other thing is fiction versus non-fiction. Both are approached with a very organized way. Both require quite a lot of research. That's a lie that fiction doesn't do it. Even if you're writing sort of from your own memory and experience, there is an element that requires research at that time. Definitely.
Sure.
But nonfiction, to me, because India and Love was my first nonfiction book, I actually had to learn how to write nonfiction.
Yeah.
Not only did I have to write a book, I have to also understand how do I write a book of narrative nonfiction.
Mm-hmm.
So it's narrative nonfiction where I'm storytelling and putting the stats, facts, all of that. So it's sort of like you're eating a nice big bowl of pasta and there is a lot of good vegetables, but you have to make the pasta so well that the vegetables and the pasta taste good all together. So you have to really, so otherwise people might say, I don't want to eat vegetables in my pasta. Cook it well. It becomes tasty. That's what narrative nonfiction is like. So I have to learn to write along with actual research book. And that was what
He's not very old, right?
Was easier.
Looks very young.
So I'm curious, in that particular book, Ira, did your the editorial team, did they work with you for a particular voice? Because exactly what you're talking about, you have to mix anecdotes, you have to mix interviews, you have to add in information and data, and all of that needs to be as you said, a perfect bowl of pasta. So perfectly blended. So how was the process? Did you write the first draft and then the editors kicked in, or were you working simultaneously with them to get the flow and the format correct?
I was working with a very, very well-known editor called David Davidar. He's well-known. He's published Vikram State and is the editor of a last publication. So he, David is a worldwide, very well-known editor. He's amazing. So I did have the opportunity to work with him. I did have that advantage of working with someone who had incredible amount of experience. But David also just lets the author be. He never really here and gave too much feedback. I've worked with other less experienced editors, and they often give a lot of feedback that completely supports the book. So I actually realized that when the editors are really good, they actually let the authors do their own thing. And that's what they really do. So I appreciated that with him. And he really just let me be on my own. And there was times when it was frustrating. When I went back and said, I want more input. I want more help. He would say, just do it on your own, what comes out of it. And I'm glad I took that advice, because when I worked with other editors who would handhold a lot more and give so much feedback on every small thing, I realized that, wow, this is actually sorting the book beyond what's natural, because there's so much editorial feedback. I really appreciate work with that. So editors in general, at least in India, are pretty hands-off. I've very, very rarely had editors who told me that, oh, go and restructure this whole thing. So it's yeah, at least this is the way. Internationally, editors, or especially internationally, you have to have an agent before you publish a book, especially if you're looking at a big publishing house. They can be very nitty-gritty. They can be looking at every sentence, because they're not editors as the editors in the publishing house. That's what my personal take is. But it's important for you to hold your own and say, no, I believe in this. So there's a certain kind of a line that you have to walk on.
Absolutely. Like, and it's your voice, so that needs to shine through, right? Like, and yeah. So I think I'm getting a lot of questions over here about your process, Ira. I think you mentioned a little bit, you alluded to it, that you try to be very regular with your writing. But beyond that, tell us a little bit more about your process. Like, do you, do you have the story outline or the book outline early on? Like, do you structure it up front? Then you go back to writing the chapters? Does it evolve? How does it happen for you?
So I'm a very, very, I write out, I love mapping the book. I love creating a skeletal structure. I spend a lot of time doing it. I spend a few months doing that. Because if you get that, right, and I go into great detail, how many pages, what's the journey of this character going to be? And I use a writing software called Scrivener. That's really helped me. These writing softwares really help you organize the book. So that they have like a lot of post-its and you put them all on a board. You get all visual. That really helps me. Because sometimes my handwriting is so bad I don't even recognize it helps. So it's good to work on softwares like this because I get to see everything visually. I get to map the journey. Now there's all these really cool writing softwares that are out there. I really encourage people to work in those. Microsoft Word is fine, of course, but these are better. And then you don't have this issue of, I'm going to lose my Word because Microsoft Word crashed, because I feel that the Word is always crashed. Everything's auto-saved. Every word that is auto-saved. And that was my biggest thing of using these software, that Word is saved. You don't have to worry about losing stuff all the time. Oh my God, I've lost so much stuff in my life. So this was really good for me. I really enjoy using Scrivener as a platform, and I don't think I can actually write without it now. So mapping a book is very important for me. Creating a very outline, especially nonfiction, is really important for me. So I always do that. For fiction, it's important for me to be quite specific because you can go on to these long rambles. So even with that, you have to be quite concise. What is every chapter going to cover? And if you create the skeletal structure within chapters, I'll create structures. There's going to be